The scarf you see pictured here on the website, I knit using one skein of flounce. I cast on 9 stitches and I worked garter stitch, which is knit every row, for the entire length of the scarf. The scarf measures approximately 5 inches wide by 44 inches long. To work with this yarn is a little bit different than working with a traditional yarn. As you can see, this is a ribbon, but it's a very wide ribbon, and it's a ribbon that is created from a very open weave. And so there are all of these holes in the width of the ribbon, which allows us to very easily poke our needle through the ribbon. And that's actually how we're going to both cast on and knit with this yarn. We're not going to be wrapping the ribbon around the yarn. We're going to be poking our needle through the top edge to grab hold of a stitch. So how I cast on is as follows. First of all, what you might want to do, though I haven't in this particular skein that I'm showing as an example, but you might want to either serge the end of your ribbon or apply some fabric glue, just because the ends of this yarn are a little bit, they tend to unravel if you don't secure it somehow. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to fold it over and tuck it under, much as I would if I was sewing and creating a seam in sewing. So to cast on, and again I cast on 9 stitches for the scarf you see here, I'm just going to poke my needle right through the upper edge. And in this first stitch, because I folded it over to try and hide the edge that was unraveling because I hadn't glued it or serged it, I'm just going to take the tip of my needle and I'm poking through both what I folded over as well as the beginning of my ribbon. So that's 1 stitch cast on. Now to cast on a second, I'm going to jab my needle through the edge of the ribbon about 1.5 inches up from the first. Now whether you jab from behind or jab from the front to the back really doesn't matter, except if you go from the front to the back, when you knit your first row, that stitch is going to look twisted. For this project it really doesn't matter, but if it's going to throw you off and bother you, then you should cast on by jabbing your needle through from the back of the ribbon to the front. Okay, so again, I'm starting with 1 stitch. I'm going to ballpark or eyeball about 1 inch worth of length before I then poke my needle from the back to the front in through the ribbon again up on this top edge. I'm going to ballpark about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. There's 3 cast on, here's 4 cast on, here's 5 cast on, here's 6 cast on. So you can see how quick and easy this is. And what you'll notice is that I'm not being particular about whether I'm getting the very edge hole or 1 hole in, nor am I careful about whether I'm getting exactly 1 inch from each cast on to the next, because I'm just not that particular. If you want to be, you can measure and you can be careful about it. But the scarf that you are looking at, the green one online pictured here, was done with a rather random approach to it. So again, I'm just randomly stabbing what looks to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. I'm generally trying to grab the upper edge of the ribbon. I certainly am not poking in the middle or at the bottom, because then you're not going to have any ruffle. So you want to at least aim for the top edge. And once you've cast on your 9 stitches, turn your needle around and you're ready to start knitting. Now knitting with this yarn is going to be much like it was for casting on. We're going to, instead of wrapping our needle around the yarn, which is what you ordinarily do with the yarn, we're going to poke the yarn over the needle or poke the needle through the yarn, depending upon how you want to look at it. So we're going to start as we ordinarily would, which is to insert our right needle through the stitch on our left needle. But now we're going to splay this ribbon open and we're going to poke the upper edge onto the needle and pull just that part through. So you're not pulling the entire width of the ribbon through, you're just pulling through this little top section here that you've poked your needle through. So insert, splay the ribbon out, and poke the ribbon over the needle, or the needle through the ribbon, again depending on how you want to look at it. I am randomly eyeballing maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches. I think if you read the label that comes on this yarn, it suggests 3/4 of an inch distance between each poke of the ribbon. If you do that, you will probably get a longer scarf than I got, but it may not be as full. So that's up to you. You can choose whether you'd rather have a little more length from your skein, or whether you, but then sacrifice a bit of the fullness in the ruffle, or if it's more important to you to have the fullness of the ruffle that you see pictured here, and just go with the 44-inch length, which is the length of the scarf that I have shown here on the website. Okay, so there is a cast on row and 1 row knit. Now I'll knit 1 more row just so you can see. I'm feeling a little bit awkward here knitting this because I'm having to sort of hug the flip camera between my arms as I knit, so I'm probably not looking as fluid as it really was when I was knitting the green one, because when I was knitting the green one I had my arms and hands free to manipulate the yarn. So this may not look very fluid, but when you actually sit down to do it, you won't be trying to film it at the same time as I am, and you won't be hugging this little flip camera, and you'll see how quick and easy this project really is. So you splay open your yarn, you poke it on to the needle, and you pull that loop through. Insert the needle, splay open the yarn, jab on the ribbon onto the needle, and pull it through. Insert, splay open the yarn, jab it on the needle, pull your loop through. Insert your yarn, splay open the ribbon, jab it on the needle, and pull your loop through. Alright, so now I've done 2 rows and a cast on, and you can begin to see the ruffle developing. So I hope you all have a lot of fun with this.